tell Jack about the dowry.
Welcome to the Progress Texas Happy Hour.
Welcome to the Progress Texas Happy Hour. I'm Advocacy Manager Reagan Stone. Sign die, y'all. The 89th legislative session has adjourned. That's my gavel on the desk there. And as we are speaking, Governor Abbott's window to sign or veto bills is quickly approaching. That last day is June 22nd. But today, while we probably still will nitpick at least a couple horrible bills, we're also in true Progress Texas style here to lift up leaders who stood their ground in Austin. And our first guest, I think we can say is a regular on the pod, or at least our socials, Senator Sarah Eckhardt represents the 18th Texas Senate District after being elected twice as Travis County Judge, of course, based in Austin. She's also served Cap Metro and Project Connect, noting her advocacy for car plus options, meaning sidewalks, bike lanes, and transit. The senator also cares deeply about fighting for a fair justice system, a transparent and equitable tax system, and increasing healthcare access, especially for working families and children. Welcome back to the show, Senator Sarah Eckhardt.
Thank you so much, Reagan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're really excited to have someone like you here today to be able to walk us through, of course, maybe see if we've learned any lessons from this past session. But before we dive into the 89th in Austin, will you introduce yourself a bit more to our statewide audience? Make sure and add anything that I missed in your bio. And while you're at it, can you tell us something that you've maybe missed while you've been in session and that you're hoping to enjoy this summer post-Lege?
Sure. So I'm State Senator Sarah Eckhardt, representing most of Travis County and the city of Austin. So delighted to have this constituency, which lets me be the voice of their voice in the legislature. And just wanted to say I'm looking forward to a smidge of downtime, but also, where there is no dissent, there is no democracy. So there's still a lot of work to do outside the legislative season to make sure that we organize and get our voices heard. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you, Senator, again for joining us. And I'll note, just bouncing off of what you just noted, we spoke personally. One of the few folks I got to chat with back in right after the November election. And I know at least I was feeling a little bit fraught from that moment in history. Of course, we never shy too far away from politics. So we're heading back to Texas politics. And I'm going to start with some of the bad here. My hope is so that we can land on some good news, or perhaps you can bring some lessons that we can be able to use and this next year going forward towards the midterms as well. There's a lot of bad that, of course, happens in any legislative session. I'm thinking voucher scans or trying to strengthen the Attorney General's office. Those are just two particular topics that have been on my mind a lot. But, I'll also note, while those topics are fair game, your passions that I mentioned, they didn't necessarily get as much daylight as someone like me that I'd hope they would. That's a couple of them are transportation and healthcare. After all, there's only 11 Democrats in the 31 state Senate and a Republican majority in the Texas House as well. So my question is, could the worst moments be when bills didn't get a hearing, much less a passing vote? Or do you have something else on your mind that's, a baddie? And I don't mean that in a good way.
Sure. The worst of it is not getting it's not that bills don't get heard. Really, the worst of it is that, we're living in a comparatively wealthy state with ending fund balance, historic ending fund balance the last two sessions. And yet we are still the most uninsured population in the United States. We're still underskilled and underemployed, which means that our business sector is struggling to find skilled workforce. We are still struggling to have We have hospitals closing, medical practitioners leaving the state or choosing not to come to the state. And folks at their kitchen table are still struggling with rent, groceries, insurance costs. Those are all going up, and the state did not address those things. Did not address healthcare, did not address housing costs, spoke a lot about housing costs, but didn't actually do anything about it, and did not address our increasing property and health insurance costs at all. That's the worst of it. Our government exists to serve us, y'all. We can talk about what the state did deliver, and it did deliver some things, but it really avoided the hard work necessary to address what is on most people's minds, which is the cost of their grocery bill, the cost of their housing, the cost to insure their property and insure their health.
Is that some of the topics that folks in Travis County and Austin are speaking about too? Is there one particular topic that you think stands out amongst the rest for your constituents?
I think that's the underlying, that underlies everything. Everyone is concerned about those day-to-day costs and how they're going to make ends meet going forward into what is probably some pretty choppy economic waters. But also my constituency is deeply concerned that we wasted a tremendous amount of legislative hours on attacking people's rights to education, attacking their rights to healthcare, attacking their access to the ballot, attacking local control, consolidating centralized state control, and really over-regulating our lives, our liberties, and our pursuit of happiness, even to the point of telling us how to pray and who to pray to.
That's exactly right. And you're referring to some of those bills that passed requiring prayer and the 10 Commandments, I'm guessing, some baddies, and again, not in a good light. But we're going to get to that a little bit more, I think, in kind of speaking about how we can bring about new messaging, hopefully messages that can win elections in just a moment as well. But without sticking just on the bad news, perhaps we need a little breath of fresh air. So don't worry, let's move to the best. Can you tell us, a highlight of this session? And perhaps that is playing defense on a particular issue or bill, but I'm also guessing there's some victories that you're proud of too. So Senator, what are some awesome moments or issues that you note as achievements?
Sure. So first, a lot of legislation doesn't get a lot of play because it's small but meaningful. So 3 bills that I worked on that I'm really proud of is Academic Fresh Start, so that returning students don't have a decade of a bad transcript hanging around their neck. That's already been passed and signed by the governor. Cheryl Cole and I worked on making sure that all paramedics that are publicly employed have access to tuition waivers to expand their skills base as paramedics. And we also, along with Senator Betancourt's assistance, I passed a bill so that teachers could take summer jobs on the appraisal review board and help get through the backlog of residential property owners who are contesting their properties. So those are 3 really good, solid public policy bills, and I'm hoping that they'll all 3 be signed by the end of this month. But there are also some really big, good things that happened. Not enough, but we did make a substantial and sustaining investment in the Texas Water Plan. Very much needed. We also cut local property taxes, which what that really means is that we readjusted the distribution of state and local investment in public education. Local property tax cuts they sound great and they feel great. The bigger issue is that the state is putting a larger percentage of its dollars into public education and less of local property tax dollars. So that's good. And then the third big thing was that the state finally got around to readjusting its formula for how it puts in its flat dollar state investment, putting in about $8.3 billion. All 3 of those things were very good.
And a lot of that, again, around public administration or public education. Of course, representing Travis County, a lot of that is because, you have the most state employees, obviously some big school districts there as well. And so definitely bills that are going to go and directly affect a lot of the folks that you're representing as well. But, one thing for sure, lots of issues, more than obviously we'll be able to cover today, but also lots of feelings. And so when unpacking anything like a legislative session, we're going to be trying to process a lot of this and see what we've learned from it. So, Senator, I want to kind of get a little bit of a behind the scenes or maybe behind, your forehead into how you're thinking. And whether that's, in your office, discussing with your staff or stakeholders and constituents, what you think ultimately leading to pressing, the buttons on your desk, how you're making decisions. So how do you make a decision on how to vote on any given matter? And, kind of my part 2 and 3 here is, were there any hard decisions that maybe you can tell us about how you thought about how to vote on that? And any lessons that you can, of course, share with us and maybe some future leaders or aspiring electeds that are out there in the universe right now.
Sure. I'll give, if I could, I'll give 2 examples. The Life of the Mother Act. We knew that the Life of the Mother Act was coming. The Republican Party needed to come back and do damage control on a near total ban on abortion that was literally killing pregnant women. So we knew that the Life of the Mother Act was coming. Everyone wanted to vote for an adjustment, knowing it would not be enough. And so we spent a lot of our time at the beginning of the session analyzing each new iteration of the Life of the Mother Act to make sure that there weren't poison pills in there that would increase the likelihood of criminal prosecution for doctors, for helpers, for partners, family members, and even for the pregnant person themselves. And that took a lot of effort. And we were, frankly, on the fence till the very end to make sure that there wasn't, that the bill wasn't going to make things worse. I am now confident in my vote. I voted yes, that it at least, it definitely does not make things worse. And it at least makes things clearer for doctors and their insurance companies when a doctor does perform an abortion in the context of a medical emergency.
Progress Texas podcasting director Chris Mosier here. Independent, public, fact-based media is under direct attack by the Trump administration and congressional Republicans. Why? Because we dare to speak truth to power. We don't fire our staff members for expressing their own views. We don't shy away from what's really happening out of fear. As we all know, information is power, and once the truth is silenced, we're all powerless. Progress Texas relies on funding from our listeners and viewers to keep shining a light on the truth in Texas. If you've come to rely on Progress Texas, please support us. We don't do subscriptions or paywalls because the media we produce is important for everyone to be able to see and hear, but it can't continue without you. Please become a regular, sustaining monthly supporter of Progress Texas right now at progresstexas.org/donate.
We spoke, of course, with a good friend, Representative Howard, as well, towards kind of the beginning of that bill coming out. And, I think everyone that, of course, we speak to, a lot of Democrats, but also a few Republicans as well that we spoke to perhaps more privately, were noting that this bill is specifically there to help doctors. And that's what doctors were saying as well. And at the same time, like you said, we wanted to make sure that there were not poison pills in that, or rather Progress Texas's light is to be able to shine light on any unintended consequences. Of course, we're referring to some of the powers that we thought could be in a bill that would strengthen the AG's office and being able to prosecute, like you said, folks that were going to get an abortion, or their partners or other players that were not just doctors. And so we've noted, we've talked to a lot of folks that have read it, and I know a lot of folks in your office have read that bill many times as well. And I think you're exactly right that this bill is going to be able to help doctors perform their job better. It's going to be able to put out some guidelines on allowing patients to know their rights and their ability to get access and health care. And then further, I think a big lesson from this as well is Republicans came, and I'll note a few that worked with, like Representative Howard, Representative Charlie Guerin in the House. He came because folks, his own constituents, and I'll note probably more affluent folks, were coming and saying, I can't get health care right now. And so I think there is a lot there, Senator, as well as you're noting, there's still a lot of work that still needs to be done around reproductive rights. Am I right there?
Absolutely, because you were speaking, we were wanting to make sure that there weren't unintended consequences, but the intended consequences are still there. The same intended consequences from the 2021 session, which is a near total ban on abortion and the ability to criminally prosecute doctors and anyone who helps a pregnant person get an abortion outside of a very narrowly defined emergency medical exception. That is the intended consequence, to be able to hold them criminally responsible. And that is still the law in Texas.
Yeah. And a lot of representatives, I'll note Republicans, those representatives were coming and saying, we need something like this because, doctors aren't doing their jobs, or the courts didn't do their jobs, or the Texas Medical Board didn't do their jobs. And so it was kicked back to the legislature in some way. And it seemed like, the folks that passed that, and I'll call it, at least until this bill was around, it was a total abortion ban in ways. We have pregnant women that have no longer viable pregnancies that have to carry all the way to the end of term. That is a total abortion ban, in my personal opinion. And perhaps this bill will help out with some of those medical exemptions. But at the same time, we had those Republicans literally blaming doctors or blaming the courts or blaming the Texas Medical Board when in fact they were the folks that passed this in the first place.
And we're seeing that in public education as well. There's a lot of pointing fingers and blaming the very public servants who are doing their darndest to educate our children. Blaming teachers, blaming librarians, blaming principals and administrators, when in actuality, the state did not readjust its flat dollar investment in public education since 2019, intentionally withheld money from public education in the 2023 session over vouchers, and then came back this session raking out $1 billion from public education funds for vouchers and increasing the flat dollar investment in public education by the state, but not enough to keep up with inflation since 2019. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of blaming and shaming going on by a state that is actually creating crises in our public education system.
Yes, and you say it so well in a way that, these issues have literally been, and forgive me if I say the wrong word here, but they're gaslighting in some way. Mm-hmm. They're noting that there's a big problem, and they're not willing to actually go back and fix it, as I would say, upriver. There, like you noted, double digit, over 20% inflation since 2019. And in the same light, that actual student allotment barely raised in that margin. Something I think Representative Tallarico had noted that it would be need to be closer to $1,400 per student. And we landed on something that's a fraction of that.
We did.
But, before I digress, I want to note, we also have a lot of rebuilding in an opposition party, too. So Democrats have a lot to do here, even after a legislative cycle. Obviously, lessons to unpack and learn from. And I'll note a few different options I think the party is laying out right now. Some in our big tent are gearing towards positioning the party as a working class heroes party, arguing that centering economic issues will lead us out of a 30-plus year vacancy in winning any statewide offices. Others are pushing for a party that resembles maybe a past Republican pro-business or more moderate party. And then still others are clamping to issues that might seem hyper-partisan, but obviously have played a huge role in lost messaging in elections. A couple examples are Dems are not very good at stoking real found fear on issues like voting rights, but when served up fear, we lose on issues like immigration. Senator, I'm going to ask this in this type of a light. You fight for a lot of historically progressive issues, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking issues like reproductive, voting, LGBTQ plus rights, the environment, labor. I could go on. But these issues are the young person's reasoning for going to the polls. And noting we need Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X to show up, what would your argument be to these young or value-focused progressives who might say this big tent party is too big or too corporate or too vast a gamut of ideologies to attract them? What would your argument be to them?
My argument, I mean, I love this constituency. My constituency is so smart and so active and so vocal. There is never a question for me about what the Travis County constituency wants in their local government, their state government, and their federal government. So at least from my position as a representative of Senate District 14, it is clear to me that at base, people want an affordability platform. They want government to take care of business first. First and foremost, they want our governmental system, whether it's local, state, or federal, to be effective and efficient at making sure we have a level playing field and that we have affordable housing, affordable groceries. We can insure against risk, and insuring against risk for our houses, for our cars, for our rental insurance. That comes down to what we're doing in transportation infrastructure, addressing climate change and extreme weather. They want to know the government is taking care of business. They also want, on top of that, they want to know that government is not invading on their personal lives, liberty, and happiness. Whether you're 18 years old or whether you're 80 years old, Texans do not want their government up in their snoot on how they live their lives, how they worship, who they love, how they invest their dollars, whether they're a business or whether it's your personal dollars. They want local control so that they can have a sense of agency in their lives, and they don't want control centralized in a big state government bureaucracy that is making lists on who's naughty and who's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the message. It's what the Democrats have always stood for. And frankly, it's what some of the Republicans used to stand for. So while some may feel like that's too big of a tent, my response is, look, civil liberties are everyone's civil liberties. So you may feel like LGBTQIA issues aren't your issues. But you know the old poem, first they came for the socialists and I wasn't a socialist, so I did nothing. Civil liberties are everyone's right to speak out. I don't think that we should be lining our streets with armed personnel in advance of protest and squelching people's right to gather and be heard. Whether you are gathering to be heard on gun rights or gathering to be heard on LGBTQ rights, the civil liberties should be the same. whether you were born in Mexico or whether you were born in Seguin. Your civil liberties should be the same.
I couldn't agree with you more. I agree with you. And I think there's something to be said into this as well from a quote that I heard recently from the outgoing San Antonio mayor, just so that we're timely. Mayor Ron Nirenberg, termed out San Antonio mayor, just stepped down. And the new mayor who perhaps was supported by the Democrats, that person will be stepping up in the next day or so. So folks know where we are in our recording right now. But Mayor Nirenberg said that he believes that there are certain issues that resonate with anyone. He was noting a lot of the good public policy that you're talking about, the cost of living, childcare, education, transportation, the places that people want to see quality goods services delivered to them by their government. And then further, he said that, the goal of his has always been so that folks don't even really know who he is or who the city is. And now I might not go completely to that point, but what I'm trying to note is that he is trying to say that that folks should trust their government. They should get out there and vote and be part of the system. But then once they bring those elected officials, they should know that they're working in their best interests. And unless they have a big issue to bring, that they can step back and trust government. Now, San Antonio is a lot different than Austin. I know folks in Austin are extremely invested in their government officials, and I know they reach out to your office amongst others in Travis County. But what is something that we can learn from the fact of those kind of, are they kitchen table issues, childcare, education, transportation, places that we should be working to strengthen rather than try to privatize?
We should. We need to be strengthening our government role there and make sure that our government is effective and efficient at delivering these playing field leveling services, I call it opportunity infrastructure. Opportunity infrastructure includes schools, courts, hospitals, transportation grid, energy grid, water grid. These are all opportunity infrastructures that are the best economic development engines you can possibly invest in. They don't pick winners and losers. They make it available to everyone on an equitable basis, and it should be running in the background, just as Ron was saying. That should be boring and trustworthy. Mm-hmm. I had a reporter once leave the county beat, and I said, "Is there anything you want to tell me, Marty, on your way out the door that would improve our performance?" And he said, "No, y'all are so boring. There are no scandals, and things pretty much run on schedule and on budget." So I agree with Ron, particularly at the local level. Making sure things work and that they're done effectively and efficiently. But we are in a time where government is no longer addressing those bread and butter issues, those common level up the playing field issues, and instead is telling you you're on your own, sink or swim, be with the winners or be with the losers. And if you're with the losers, we may even arrest you. These are dangerous times that we're in. So I totally agree with Ron. We must concentrate on those basics, but we're villainizing the very people who are doing those basics. We are villainizing, politicizing, and threatening the people who are doing the basics in childcare, transportation, water infrastructure. I have long been refining this theory that the far right has been pushing a message for about 3 decades now that government cannot be trusted. It's at least incompetent, if not corrupt, and therefore you should elect far right Republicans who will prove to you by being incompetent, at least incompetent, if not corrupt. We've villainized the idea of public service.
I really appreciate that notion because, of course, government is run by and for the people, but mostly it's by people just like you and me. Thank you very much, Senator Sarah Eckhardt, for, of course, your heart forward service. And as we wind down, I got one more question. I'm hoping it's a softball. It is easy. But Senator, any shout outs, honorable mentions, people or organizations you want to lift up? And of course, where can we find out more about you over the next biennium, the next couple years before the next session?
You can always go to my socials. We've got we have a Get Involved a page on my website, so you can see a calendar that has everything in it. In these times, considering what's going on, we should, if you can, find a way to make a contribution to American Gateways. American Gateways provides legal services to individuals who are seeking asylum in the United States. Great group. They've been around for a long time and do great work. So do consider making a contribution to American Gateways. Do consider coming to my town hall with Zoe Kadri on Saturday at City Hall, City of Austin City Hall. And do consider going to the No Kings rally on Saturday evening. I also want to give a shout out to Christy Walton of the Walmart, the Walmart heiress, who's helping fund publicizing and training for the No Kings rally on Saturday. That's really wonderful. And you can always find me. I've got coffee jolts that go on the third Thursday of every month outside of session. So we're going to pick that back up in June. My town hall with Zoe is going to replace my June coffee jolt, but I'll be in a independently owned coffee shop someplace in Travis County almost every single month between now and the next session. So feel free to come by, talk to me, tell me what your issues are, and let us and my team be your concierge to public service and public civic engagement.
Well, thank you again for joining us today, Senator Sarah Eckhardt. And of course, just like your work, us at Progress Texas, the work does not end, even though we are now in an interim. Legislative sessions, just like elections, may come and go, but our progressive movement is forever and we're year round. An authoritarian extremist ruling party deserves a strong, united opposition. And please stay with us. Share this podcast channel with a friend. And if you're able to do so, please invest in progressive messaging, because our business is to mobilize communities and shine light on the issues our well-funded opponents, like deep-pocketed oil billionaires, far-right religious organizations, and corporations, don't want you to know. But because of people just like you and our sustaining donors, we aren't going anywhere. So you can join them to keep our content free at progresstexas.org/donate. And from the entire team, we'll see you next time.
The Progress Texas Happy Hour is a production of Progress Texas, a rapid response media organization promoting progressive messages and actions. Find us online at progresstexas.org and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. The podcast is produced by me, Chris Mosier, and our featured music is by Walker Lukens. Please be sure and subscribe to the Progress Texas Happy Hour on the podcast platform of your choice. Take a moment to leave us a review if you've enjoyed the show, and be sure and tell your friends about us. Thanks for listening and for all you do to press progress forward here in the Lone Star State. We'll see you again next week.